Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to each and every one of you. Welcome back to Unscripted Untold.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening.
How are we doing, Miss Harriet?
We are doing well. We are doing well. We're keep pushing forward, no matter what.
That's what we're gonna do.
How are you?
I'm good. Blessed.
Good.
Lessons learned this week, so I'm still pushing forward, as you said, and I'm thankful for the lessons. Definitely.
Me too.
So today our topic is like a continuation from last week's podcast, and we're talking about Reconstruction and resistance. And there's much to delve into this episode, and so we're going to try to put it all together in maybe 40 minutes to an hour, but I think it's going to get pretty heavy, if that's a good word to put it.
Yep.
Yeah. We're going to dive on into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's talk about broken promises within the Black culture, right? One of the things that we hear the term, and also there's a reason behind it. We're going to go more into detail about it. But 40 acres and a mule, the promise versus the reality, which is a big, huge difference, as we can see over generations and into today's modern society. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the promise that was given in 1865 after the Civil War had ended. This gentleman, Union General William T. Sherman, issued a special field order number 15, which is in turn it set aside 400,000 acres of confiscated Confederate land for newly freed Black families. Okay. So what this meant was for the Black families, was self-sufficiency, wealth, and stability. However, this is where the however comes in. Yet, within a year's time, President Andrew Johnson rescinded the order through, although some Blacks had actually started to begin to build like communities and farms of that nature, they were forced to move out, leaving them vulnerable and usher them right into control laws and now make exploitation for generations to come. All right. Ultimately, the Black community was robbed of a critical opportunity to build generational wealth. And then they were forced into a cycle of economic struggle. And we still see that today.
Absolutely.
That was a promise.
That was a promise, right?
The reality is what we see. Let's just stop there and really just think about that promise that was given, and it was just yanked away from our ancestors. We don't back then. We wouldn't have possibly known too much of the thoughts, but we can see by the action more so of President Andrew Johnson and why he rescinded that order. We can't possibly think what he was thinking, but again, we could see the action of that. What's your thoughts?
Well, Johnson was definitely racist. He was definitely pro, Confederate sympathizer. So everything that Grant and Abraham Lincoln had put into place once Lincoln was assassinated, he rescinded everything that was geared towards helping, slaves, with the 40 acres and a mule. That's a prime example. He pardoned a lot of uh, Confederate, Southern sympathizer. He was a Southern sympathizer, and hence why the black codes, the Reconstruction era, the blacks that were put into was elected into Congress and things like that.
That was
After, he rescinded all of that. So, yeah. Go ahead.
We kind of see a little bit of that with Trump, and how he's come in and turned a couple of things around, where the Democratic Party left, the last Democratic Party left things, and we're kind of seeing those steps again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, history, a lot of history is repeating itself in a different form.
Yeah.
But the 40 acres and a mule, it's kind of a ironic, I don't want to say ironic, but have our ancestors was giving that, I mean, if it was followed through, think of the impact of what it would have been today. And that's part of what you're saying. And a lot of our ancestors, a lot of black were able to acquire land, but it was also manipulated to where they had to, in some form or fashion, they had, their land was taken away from them by any means necessary, whether, based on some lie, a rumor of lie, the bottom line of it was to take away the autonomy of black folks.
Yeah. And that's a sad truth. And then I guess we could pose the question, how different would black wealth look today if those promises were kept? Now, not all black families are subjected to what happened. Some do own land.
Right.
And there's a process of that too. I know there's a process of actually going in and owning the land. The mortgage does not make you own the land.
Right.
Okay. So I just kind of wanted to put that little snippet out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we would see land ownership and the creation of wealth where we would be able to pass it down to our families. That was something that I honestly wanted to do when we were living in Ohio. We had purchased a home, but we didn't actually own the land. But that would have been something that I would have definitely wanted my kids to have, their kids to have. And so,
right.
You know what I mean? Could you think of anything how it would look, how different it would look if those promises were kept?
I mean, plenty of what you said. I think the number one thing of generational wealth is purchasing, of having a land, having property, to pass on. And had we had, the opportunity of having the 40 acres and a mule, that would have started that generation, of passing that piece of property that you own, that your blood, sweat, and tears, that you own, that you created, that you cultivated, and, pass it down to your family, your legacy. That's your part of your legacy. And I think that would have changed a lot of our mindset now, of the importance of having something owned instead of renting or, depending on the government. Because let's be clear, and, people are going to argue and say, the government was not created for our benefit.
Never.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. And, no matter how much we, want to fight and all this, the government was not created. The Constitution was not created for us as people of color, because we were property at that time. So, I mean, and it's still, and you see it throughout history, when we tried to acquire a little bit of the American dream, it was taken away from us by some form or fashion. Look
Yeah.
at Tulsa.
So that
Look at
too.
Black Wall Street. Look at, Rosewood. I mean, there's so many Black communities that were destroyed because of the fact that our ancestors understood the importance of being self-sufficient, and they didn't like that. They can't fathom the thought that they don't want us, you know, they don't want to help us, or they want us to be dependent on them.
Yeah.
And when you see that, oh, there's so many stories of, ancestors that have acquired land, and being, uh, and trying to pass that down to their families.
Yeah.
And, like I said, all it takes is a one little manipulation, or some bogus charge, and next thing this war breaks out, and this lynch mob comes and get that land owner, only because they were just, the bottom line is just they resented the fact that this black, how dare this black, entrepreneur is have better,
Yeah.
have create a legacy for his and his family.
And two, greed. Greed is
And greed. And yeah, greed, that's always the bottom line as well.
Yeah. I believe too there would be thriving black owned businesses. Again, land is a foundation of economic power. So it would have provided more of a stronger financial backing and the stability through farms and institutions and so forth. I believe we would see stronger black communities if that promise was kept.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you just touched on this piece was black families would have access to valuable real estate and better economic opportunities. And it seems like it's a picking. Like we take what we can.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw this, and I'm going to put it on blast because this is unscripted, untold. But I experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
It was through a financial institution, Navy Federal, namely, and we were wanting to purchase a home, and the way they went about it was something I wasn't used to because I went through the process of buying a home before, so I know what steps need to be taken. They barely took any information from me, and then they made a decision based on what I don't know. And so I couldn't get in touch with the person that was handling my application. I kept calling, wanting to know what's going on and so forth. I had been a customer for a little while, but the fact of the matter is the way they handle it. And so maybe months later, or maybe a year later, it came out that Navy Federal was targeting the black culture in regarding purchasing homes or giving them a loan to purchase a home. So that came out. I was one of those people who was like, well, how did you make this determination?
Right.
Because you didn't take a social security number. You didn't take anything from me except for the area we were looking for, because we were living in Florida. We were looking in an area specifically. Didn't get that. U.S. Bank is another one where this was in Florida, so I don't know if U.S. Bank was like that for other people in different parts of the country. However, I had called and tried to get. I had used them for the house in Ohio, so I had a good relationship with them. Had no problem. So I was like, well, that's the company I want to use. The institution I would like to use when we get ready to purchase a home here in Florida. Same ordeal. Guy was real nasty. I only can give you 100 and I think he said 160 something or 140 something thousand. And I said, that's a hole in the wall here.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with that? He was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Real rude. And so that's the kind of thing that we see now when it comes to purchasing, wanting to be able to buy our own homes and lands and so forth. Um, and so we'll get into that in terms of predatory lending.
I was getting ready to say, yeah, yeah,
I just thought I would share that because it's still happening today, unfortunately.
right.
And a lot, I have I wouldn't so much call her a friend, but I would say someone that I know knows these laws, knows how to go in and write up the right stuff to be able to own the land. Own the land, not just because you have a mortgage, but actually the code, the law,
Mm-hmm.
because there are laws in place. I mean, we see what's his name, President Trump. He buried his first wife on his land. They can't come get that land,
Mm-hmm.
which was a smart thing. I
Mm-hmm.
can't go for that. I said, oh, well, that's all you got to do. Law is there, but there's laws out there. If you can bury your loved one on your land, they cannot come and take that.
Yeah.
They cannot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off on my tangent.
Yeah, because we both can go off
Yeah.
on tangents on this stuff.
Yeah. Um, what was the next question I had? Okay, well, so another thing that we were just talking about, the Jim Crow laws, it restricted where Black people could live,
Mm-hmm.
own businesses, and buy property. I feel like what's those done away with in today's society? Do we really feel like that those laws were done away with?
You still have,
Yeah,
I mean, if you're talking about in today's society, I mean, it's still there.
yeah,
It's not as blatant, maybe, but then again, it depends on where you are. Um, Even when, the Great Migration and blacks moved to the North, they were regulated to a certain area, which is, why we always call it the South Side, either like South Side of Chicago.
mm,
You were restricted, blacks were restricted only to, migrated to that area. And you better not dare go to, I don't know what other, those who are from Chicago know, um, you, it wasn't no north side of Chicago, because that was, it was still segregation even here in the North. And people don't understand, you know, even though they may have a little bit better, but not by much, not by
right,
much.
right. Unfortunately,
So yeah, and today, and it's funny because maybe it's my old way of thinking. Even where I am now, back in the day, a lot of us, I grew up on, you know certain side, and most of the blacks were on the south side or whatever,
right.
and only few and far between was ever, north side or east side. And it's like, I still have that mindset. I'm not going up to the north side. That's all. They didn't want us to, you know what I'm saying? Even though if now it's not like that, but I mean, there's people that live, all people live on those sides of towns, but it's like you still have that ingrained mind that, the issues that were going on even back in,
Yeah,
as a kid growing up.
yeah, yeah. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about Black excellence rising. And firstly, let's talk about like the explosion of Black schools, HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot. Businesses and churches. Let's talk about that. All right. I'm gonna hand it over to my co-host. I guess I don't really have too much of a question. Let's think. So figures like Ida B. Wells, who was a journalist, Booker T. Washington, W. E. Du Bois. Let's talk about a few of those. how those began to rise in Black excellence during that time frame.
Wow.
It's a lot to talk about.
It is. I really started learning about well, Ida B. Wells. I always, looked at her in her documentary and read, books about, what she has done. I mean, she really was a pioneer of bringing the awareness of the Jim Crow South, the Black codes, all the lynchings that were going on um, in the South. And I guess the era of, if you can't fight them, physically, then you fight them by pen,
Mm.
by journal, by writing about it and letting people know, you know, what's going on. And she really got to the undercurrent of what the really, I mean, there's incidents of, where she said she did her investigation of when a black male was lynched and the mob and everything. She brought it, but then, she said first, maybe this brute, as she called it, was had deserving it, until she did more further investigation. It was always because of, dipping your pond, the accusation of him R-wording their precious white women, and always come to find out that's not even true.
Mm.
And if you really, really look into, as she said, if they not be careful, you may find that the issue was that she was really, that victim wasn't a victim at all, but actually was engaged in consensual relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she bought all of that out, and that just uproared the South. How we're protecting the sanctity and the pureness of our women.
That's
And
crazy.
you know
It's crazy. Like, and it's. I'm gonna leave that one alone because it
yeah, I mean, but yeah,
baffles me. It just baffles me. You know.
yeah, but I mean, on the other end, they do it to our women. What they've done, what they're accusing of what our black men of
Yeah.
doing, they've been doing to our women, through slavery,
Till now.
to now. So I mean, the point was her. I mean, she was just the activist of bringing this all, by pen, by writing
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Which
Booker
was.
T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. I really am now learning the difference of
Mm.
of these two gentlemen and their point of views. And now you've got to kind of look back and say, wonder, was Booker T. Washington really had a point? Um, because I was thinking, with his philosophy, he was the accommodationist. Well, let's just, not get involved in white people's stuff. And his main thing was labor. He was more of an industrialist,
Yeah.
but looking into it, it was more like he's saying, okay, the one thing that we have is our skill, is our labor.
Yeah.
But let's use our skill and our labor to build up our communities,
Yeah.
so we don't have to be
Relying on others.
reliant on the white folks. Whereas W.E.B. Du Bois is like, no, we've been slaves. We don't want to be slaves no more. We don't want to do any type of labor work. We want to learn more about, the I don't know, the intelligence of, Greek and philosophy and all of this. But reality is, I mean, he did more than that. I'm not trying to just,
Yeah.
but the reality is, that's not gonna survive. That's not gonna sustain us. I think really if they would have worked, it would have worked hand in hand. But I do understand Booker T. Washington's philosophy. Let's sustain ourselves first, to where
Yeah.
we don't have to. We can be uh separate as the hand, but still in one hand, but still be apart,
Powerful. Yeah.
powerful. And you know, then the white folks can see that we are self-sufficient, that we, but whereas W.E.D. Du Bois, he wanted to be, we are allowed to, we should integrate, we should, we do have our rights to, go to their schools and everything else. So I mean, it balances, but then now it's like you look back at it now, it's like look where we are now.
Yeah. Because I really don't, I don't, like you said, I really don't disagree with either one of their philosophies. It's just the fact
Mm-hmm.
that, maybe if they integrated it together and then it,
Mm-hmm.
would have been a little bit more powerful
Right.
impact. Because I'm on the side of W.E. Boys, like, well, hey, let's learn how to do this, this, and this, because I think that's important, to navigate through life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, with Booker T. Washington, like that makes sense too, because how can you help someone else if you haven't helped yourself first? So
Right.
I get that too. It could sound a little selfish just depending on the narrative, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, I get both of their sides of, what they were trying to accomplish at that in
Mm-hmm.
that moment. I think Martin Luther King was a person who said, towards the end, like, well, maybe we should have stayed segregated. But,
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
he had his reasonings back in that era, why he said what he said.
Right.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, we were,
Right.
like you said in the earlier part of the podcast, a majority of the black culture had already had these things already established, the farms, the businesses, and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. They were
Mm-hmm.
forcibly taken out, and removed from what they had already established. They were doing well
Mm-hmm.
and were
Yeah.
self-sufficient.
Right. Right.
So
And that, that was the trigger. Like, wait a minute. How are they doing well? They're not relying on us. And, a lot of them were like us, um, were resentful of that because these black communities were, you know, prospering.
mm, yeah,
And this, I mean, like Black Wall Street, Tulsa, that's the, that was prime example. Prime
yeah,
example.
yeah, mm,
And I think, and then going back to W.E.B. Du Bois, I mean, his we wanted to integrate. I mean, that's fine, but I think we needed to sustain our communities, build up our own communities, keep our dollars in our communities to
yeah,
keep it going.
yeah,
There's no problem doing business with anybody else, but I'm
absolutely.
just saying, keep your dollars within your community,
Mhm.
and that'll help build your community. But we didn't do that. We didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, here's the part that I hope to stay and remain calm in. And we're going to talk a little bit about the resistance and oppression. And what that is that we're going to be talking about the rise of the KKK and the white supremacist terrorists, and then the lynchings, voter suppression, and Jim Crow foundations. So I'm going to start this puppy out.
Mhm.
Um, I will say this. Let's start with the rise of the KKK. So, um, all right. So the KKK, they were founded in, I'm not sure how to say it. I think Pulaski, Tennessee, or something
Oh,
like that. In
Pulaski County, yeah,
Pulaski,
Tennessee.
okay. In Tennessee
Mm-hmm.
in 1865. And these were basically the Confederate veterans,
Mm-hmm.
um, that right after the Civil War, I believe. So initially, it was conceived as more of like a social club
Mm-hmm.
for former soldiers, and then it quickly evolved into a violent organization, targeting freed American African Americans and their allies.
Right.
And so basically, the Klan sought out to undermine Reconstruction
Mm-hmm.
efforts employing intimidation, physical violence, and terror to restore white dominance in the Southern society. Um, the first Klan was established between 1865 through the 1870s. So we weren't even thought of, but
Mm-hmm.
its goals included suppressing the political power of freedmen and restoring white supremacy through terror. So members they use their intimidation, arson assaults, and lynchings to silence African Americans and their allies. And so their activities went widespread, of course. They're still here. I'm not going to go into like the 1950s and all of that. It's an exhaustive list of how this um, the Ku Klux Klan has evolved over generations, and up until so I'm going to skip over to 1940 up into present. Um, During the Civil Rights Movement, the Klan actually targeted African American and their activists, basically whoever was advocating for racial equality.
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw a majority of this of us saw it in maybe some movies that basically indicated how these things took place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the 1970s and the 1980s, the Klan diversified its targets to include the LGBTQ child, and immigrants aligning with border white supremacist movements. Um, their legacy is fear, division, and systematic oppression.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Um, you can feel. I'm here in Georgia, and you can still feel. One of the places was Stone Mountain,
Stone Mountain, Joe. Yeah.
which is 30, 40 minutes from here. I don't even think it's that far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to stay calm because I see it on a different aspect, to a spiritual aspect. This these these people, as I said, cause division. They cause fear. They were lynching. The lynchings were. It still bothers me to this day. The lynching. I don't know if the two men that were. I have to look that up. I'm not really for certain, but it happened in the South with Emmett Till.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they were Klan members, but when
Um. Oh, that happened in Mississippi,
Mississippi,
and yeah, and well, I don't know if they were they probably were, but I mean they never came out and actually said it, but
yeah, that to this day still bothers me. The way
mm-hmm.
they lynched that young man,
Mm-hmm.
14 years old. Um, but here in Georgia, I mean, I don't think I ended up looking it up. One day, me and my husband was actually riding, going through the southern part of Georgia, and we were
Mm-hmm.
going through an area where I've never never heard
Mm-hmm.
of it. And we were heading to Florida
Mm-hmm.
to go to Panama City. And it was something I was just thinking about because you can feel just things in the air, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what prompted me was like, how many lynchings actually took place in each of these southern states? Now,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest one was, of course, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia might have been in the third or fourth place, something like that. the area we were driving in, and I can't even remember where it was, but it was in Georgia, but it was a man who, I think it's where peanuts are, or something like that. I can't even remember. But this the the way these things took place in that era, um, there was a lot of hatred spewed into America, and especially into the Black culture. Um, I'm this is not a I mean, you can fact check, of course, but I don't even know if some of the slave owners could have been from or part of the Ku Klux Klan. Who knows?
I
Um,
mean, slave owners, so-called the sheriffs, I mean, the deputies, I mean,
well,
people
yeah,
that, yeah, I mean, they're lawyers. They were all, I mean, why do you think they had hoods on their or sheets over their face? You pull those sheets off, you would see deacons of their so-called church as part of the
yeah,
Klan. You know what I'm saying? So it
yeah.
was, it was all kinds, all of them, from dirt poor to the prominent in the community.
Mm, yeah. Now the voter suppression.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we kind of still. I'm in between with the voter piece of it. Um, because my understanding is that um, well, let's start with this. Going back to the Ku Klux Klan, they actually contribute to the creation of the enforcement of Jim Crow laws,
Mm-hmm.
voter suppression, and segregation policies, hindering social and political progress for minorities. Um, we may have seen that, when it came to the voting, um, they weren't able. Our culture wasn't even able to do that at
Mm-hmm.
some point. Um, it just this their ideology just left a really lasting mark on the fabric of the U.S. society as a whole, not
Mm-hmm.
just on our culture, but just as a whole.
Right.
Um, I think we really see it a lot. It may not have the label or the name to it, but we still see it.
Mm-hmm.
We still see it. Any take on, just thus far on this subject in terms of the rise of the KKK and what we're seeing in today's society on the Black culture? The lynchings is a hard subject, to be honest, for me to talk about. Um,
Yeah, it is.
thing for me, to know that, if I look at if somebody looked at somebody wrong, or they said something or had an opinion about something, they were lynched for it.
Right.
Now, I mean, you kind of now, today's society, you can't even say anything. They're hypersensitive about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't say anything without somebody feeling a certain way. Offenses come. It's gonna be there. It is,
Right.
but um, it's still a hard subject to know or talk about for me. Unfortunately, that people had to be subjected to that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a thing of throwing around power. That's what it sounded like to me. Throwing around power. I can do this to you.
Right. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Because of my skin color, because of
Right.
I am
Right.
sick.
It is sick. And to think, I mean, think of that type of behavior and that activity. I mean, it was they celebrated it. I mean, how demented and sick is that? You come for, I mean, that's it's like going to a festival or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's
But
it.
Yeah, it is a hard thing. It is a hard subject, and it does it you know, as much as I love, you know, learn about American history and Black history and everything, but you know that part it's very disturbing.
It is.
Um, and you know you just can't understand. I keep thinking about how our families from back how it was about survival.
Yeah.
I mean, it was about you know just being able to survive. How they did it.
Some of our I will say this, I noticed that some of even our ancestors or even just in general our families, they are um still kind of live their lives that way,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in survival mode or in protect
Mm-hmm.
mode because you don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. You don't want um we are entitled to an opinion. Um we have a voice to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um and if it's, you know, if we're speaking in truth, I mean, we see nowadays that, you know, it's kind of it, like I said, it's just overly sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really say but so much. But I do see that where, well, don't say that, you shouldn't say that because,
Right. Right.
but if it's the truth, it's the truth.
It's the truth.
um God didn't give us a spirit of fear, so
Right.
why are we afraid to say anything for that matter? But
Right.
yeah.
So, what about our churches and how they became the center of resistance and organizing and you know our Black churches was you know even back then that was our I don't know the cornerstone of our how you know we were able to come together even that was monitored to a point uh was able to get all our spiritual our spirituality fed and also to know get support, um get all the gather all the news of what's going on and how we need to you know organize and out there. But there were a lot of resistance within. You had a lot of people, they were just afraid. I mean, it's not like they were just afraid. And it took, you know, pioneers like Ida B. Wells and, are going up, even coming up forward into the 50s and 60s who organized our even students who were going on these protests and everything. A lot of the elders and stuff, they were just afraid of what would happen if you go against, old Jim Crow.
Yeah, yeah. One of the questions I had wrote down as I was thinking about that because I, I mean, naturally our churches then were, I feel for one, was Billy sold on the building of faith, the building of the dynamic that each and every person that dealt with slavery, dealt with all types of things during that era.
Mm-hmm.
That the even though, like you said, they were monitored, um, they were solely for the support and the building up of the people.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote this question down. Where did it go? What does this? Um, the question was, what does it say that faith was used both to oppress and to empower during this time? Faith is used both to oppress and to empower during this time. And I was just like, it just like to me
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
because I think I just kind of said that. I don't honestly believe in nowadays in the modern society. I don't believe in, oh, we only have to go to a black church. We
Yeah.
only have to go to this, because
Right.
that's going into racism.
Right. Right.
Our faith isn't based on color.
Right.
Um, but I could understand that back in that era, why
Mm-hmm.
they were built that way. Um, but as time went on, and I think we talked about this on, and I'm trying to say this as delicately as possible, not all churches are like this.
Mm-hmm.
But as we grew into modern society, because of that slave mentality back then, it has been ushered into this society in most of our churches today, is that
Mm-hmm.
slave mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reading the word today, and it was talking about how, you know, I have to find the scripture, but we are free from oppression and bondage in Christ
Mm-hmm.
from all things. So, I to answer that question, as we move into today's societies, like I said, not all churches are like that, but
Right.
you still see that bondage and oppression and that slave mentality
Mm-hmm.
that's expounded upon the people, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Give me an example of that.
I don't know if this gonna hurt anything, but I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Um, what we saw about a month ago, where um, we saw a martyr, because that's in Christendom, that's what that was. And we saw, I don't know if a lot of people saw it, but I saw it. And I saw Pastor Jamal Bryant say, he compared Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King. But what he said was something in the effect of a place of, I thought it was racist. I thought it was. And there may be people that come on and don't think it was racist. I thought it was. You're comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah.
Um, I will go into a whole different spiel if I continue to talk about Pastor Jamal.
Yeah. I think we all would.
um,
We all would.
this is something else, and this is not to bash anybody, but
Right.
this is a correction and love.
Yeah.
That's that same mentality of oppression and enslavement,
Mm-hmm.
and why we do this and why we do that, is still being pushed as an agenda to most people in the church today,
Mm-hmm.
because we are the church.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't got to be the building. We
Right.
are the church.
Right.
I don't know if it was out of attention, what was said, or that's just the character. I could not give you an answer to that question, because I don't honestly know.
Right.
But there's
Yeah.
nowhere in scripture that I saw what he said to back up that theology that he, and that could have been taken out of context.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understood it to be, because I don't listen to his sermons,
Mm-hmm.
ain't gonna listen to it. But that little snippet was, it was poorly spoken in a place of, I believe, I guess I'm trying to make it where it's out of love, where it's not where I'm bashing or tearing down anybody, but it really was in a place of it was racist. I'm sorry, racist the way it was said. Whites don't have to be just the only one who.
Right.
It can be us too.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are beautiful people. We have, but I don't. I think I heard someone say this. I don't glorify this.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my skin, my flesh. I don't
Right.
glorify this.
Right. Right.
Um. So I just really felt like you still see some of these things. Because what are we teaching people? How are we teaching people to be set free?
Mm-hmm.
How? It's the truth. It's the true living word of God. Period.
Right.
That didn't have nothing to do with
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
What was said.
Yeah.
That was spoken out of flesh.
Right. I agree.
I said it. I'm sorry. Not sorry. I hope I explained it the best way I could, but when it's just we see the oppression so much and the resistance in the church as well. I don't think a lot of us has been really set free from that dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And as we read the word of God, we can be set free. He says, the truth shall set you free.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I don't dismiss that era where that's, there were Black churches built for that era to begin to build and edify that part in that era. I don't see anything wrong with that. We are the church, red, black, white, yellow, purple. It don't matter.
Right.
It don't matter.
Exactly.
That's my stance. So
I agree. I agree.
All right, so we're gonna get off that soapbox and move
Mm-hmm.
but I think I think a lot of people are not a lot of people, but I feel like we're seeing so much in this era right now, and I feel like it's just some of this stuff is just it's like Ecclesiastes said, there's nothing new under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing things, cycles just being repeated,
Right.
and there's nothing new. It's just now we see it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have access. We have access to it through our phones, through the internet. However, we have access to it. We see it more. It's in our face. No one deserves the way I did. I hope and pray they took the video down because I did not want to.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't,
Didn't want to.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That's not something that I would wish on my enemy.
Mm-mm.
At all. We can agree to disagree without it resulting to something like we saw.
Right.
I should not have that much hatred in my heart towards anybody because of an opinion.
Right.
It's an opinion.
It's an opinion, right?
And I think that's why I said what I said related to Dr. Jamal Bryant. I was saying it in a way. He has an opinion. He said his opinion, but it was at the same time. My opinion is it was racist. And it was poorly said. And there should not have been no hooping and hollering like it. Let me move. Let me move, Jesus. Whew. I'll say that for another day. So there are still systematic barriers. Lessons today. There are still systematic barriers that are still lingering at this moment. We're, literally still talking about this, but what a wealth gap, our voting rights, criminal justice. We can go into a whole nother spiel when it comes to criminal justice. There,
Mhm.
um, people will feel like it's not fair. It just depends on, again, the narrative of what actually the events that taken place. But ultimately, if we go back to the lynching of ill
Emmett Till. Mm-hmm.
out for some reason, they got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not really, but they got rid in the legal system. They got rid of it. They
Mm-hmm.
got away, and you see how the truth eventually came in the end. She bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the wealth gap is still lingering.
Mm-hmm.
It's so many things those are just a few things. What else do you feel like maybe still lingering in the lessons today in terms of the oppression and resistance in today's society towards the Black culture that you're seeing?
Um, your example of purchasing homes, really, I mean, it's still a um lingering oppression because it's the term redlining and all of that. I mean, it might not be as prevalent, but you're still getting that resistance from, you can't buy in a certain neighborhood, or they're trying to, or they'll steer you to a certain
Yeah,
area. You know what I mean? Um, so I mean,
that happened.
it still goes on.
It is
Um,
still.
yeah.
Mm. So, if you could tell your younger self one untold story from Reconstruction, what would it be?
For some reason, you are kind of like uh
I'm lagging.
breaking up a little bit.
Oh,
I don't know why. I don't know if you can,
let me turn off my internet.
but I understand the
Well,
question. If you
mine.
could tell yourself one untold story from Reconstruction, what would it be? Definitely the 40 acres and the mule, and what it was meant, what it was meant to be, and what was the reality that we received. The 40 acres and a mule. Um, so that was something that I would tell my younger self, and the importance of acquiring wealth through land, through property.
That would definitely be. Sorry. That would be definitely something that I would say for me too.
Mm-hmm.
All what you just because land is important. You got Bill Gates that got the whole I think he got like 85 to 90% of the land in the U.S. or something like that. That's a high number, and it's like what is this land?
Yeah.
But obviously he knows something that we didn't. I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's important to say it baffled my mind when I saw that number. I would definitely would want to. That would be something I would tell my younger self is the land is really important.
Yeah.
That's one thing I still want to this day, because we do also grow, um, fruits and vegetables. So I want to actually put the things in the ground instead of having a raised bed. But otherwise,
Yeah.
you can do so much with land, you know. So I do. I
Right.
still that for myself is the land, definitely. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
All right, you guys. This was a very heavy topic, but a necessary one. We got to keep talking about it. And like I said, we are entitled to our opinion. I mean, um, you have an opinion, we may agree to disagree, and that's fine. That's fine. But you know, that doesn't mean that we're gonna bash everybody else because they may have a different opinion than us, as as you guys to to ours. So just your feedback on what did you learn about the Reconstruction era as you know it, as have was taught in school or was told about. What's your takeaway on that era? Let us know in the comments.
yeah, definitely. I feel like how whatever you feel, you sit and talk about it, have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's certainly more stories to be risen, to bring up, and they're hard to erase. Like I
Right.
said, the podcast, like lynching is still hard for me to talk about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
'Cause a young man like Emmett Till at 14, I know I'm putting, I guess it was for me putting myself in his shoes and saying, oh my God, the fear that
Mm-hmm. That boy had, yeah. He was just a child. A child.
just a child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They didn't care
Yeah.
anything about it.
Mm-mm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you said that. My beautiful co-host said it's an opinion, and we should be able to express those opinions like adults.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right, you guys. Please don't forget to hit that share, like, and subscribe. We'll be back next week with another series on faith and the history finale, the finale of our history, and we're going to be talking
Yes.
about civil rights. I know we touched on it today, but and how the struggle still continues based off of civil rights. The civil rights era is definitely a when I, did my background research and, learning about it and documentaries and things, I mean, I
Yeah.
was born in the 60s, but I didn't live it in the 60s. And I can imagine, you know, you know, ugh, the repercussions of civil rights is still, with us today. And we'll talk about it. So with
Yeah.
that being said, you guys have a great week coming up and be safe. We'll talk with you soon.
All right, guys. Bye. Have a good
All
week.
right. Bye.